Evening, everyone, and welcome to The Next Revolution. This week, mortgage rates rose to 5.78%, the highest level since 2008, double what they were last year, the biggest weekly increase since 1987. So, on top of the lowest Labour participation outside the pandemic lockdown for 45 years and the highest inflation for 41 years, we now have the biggest mortgage hike for 35 years. What a historic administration, as they love to say. The specific reason that not just mortgages, but everything else from car loans to credit card debts are all now set to get much more expensive is, of course, that the Fed decided to raise interest rates by 3/4 of a point. Now, here's a good question to ask in a republic that's supposed to be run by the people. Why is a decision that will have such massive consequences for the daily lives of every American made not by our elected representatives, but by these people, the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, led by its chairman, Jerome Powell? Well, there's a theory behind it, a kind of hidden, unconstitutional theory of governance that actually determines a huge amount of what happens in this country, even though we never talk about it or debate it. The theory is this, that despite what it says in the Constitution, despite what we like to say and think about America, we the people must not be in charge. We, the people, are too stupid or lazy or distracted to be actually trusted with power or even to exercise it through the representatives we vote for in elections. Instead, we need experts who are independent. Experts are not stupid or lazy or distracted like we, the people. The experts are wise, diligent, indispensable. Except, I'm here to tell you that based on recent evidence, the experts are in fact idiots. Here's an expert talking about inflation just a few months ago in April. You know he's an expert because he won the Nobel Prize for economics.
The inflation headlines are about to come down. So we're bound to get almost arithmetically necessary. We're bound to get a series of monthly numbers that are below what we were seeing in the corresponding month last year, which means that the annual average rate of inflation is going to be dropping for the next several months.
Paul Krugman, that expert economist, told us absolutely, definitively and categorically that arithmetically, guys, this is science, not an opinion. I'm an economist, I'm an expert. He told us that arithmetically, we're bound to see inflation fall over the next few months. What happened? It rose to 8.6%. The Federal Reserve, to which we've given the power to make absolutely vital decisions affecting our lives, is chock-a-block with experts like Paul Krugman. In fact, the Federal Reserve Board employs just over 400 PhD economists. Imagine that, 400 Paul Krugmans. Perhaps that should be our new collective noun. We have a herd of cattle, a pride of lions, my favorite, a parliament of owls, and now a Krugman of idiot economists. The Krugman at the Fed has been cocking it up for years. Under Janet Yellen, another one billed as a world-class economist, the Fed kept printing trillions of dollars out of thin air, pumping up asset values, helping the rich and helping stoke today's inflation. Then, as Treasury Secretary, she helped push last year's reckless spending splurge, which guaranteed inflation would spiral out of control. Janet Yellen is probably the single person in the world most responsible for our current economic woes. But don't worry, she's an expert. After telling us inflation would be transitory and no problem, now she tells us there won't be a recession.
I don't think we're going to have a recession. I know people are very upset, and rightly so, about inflation, but there's nothing to suggest that inflation that a recession's in the works.
Given her track record, I think we'd be more reassured if she told us there was going to be a recession. And the expert idiot who's her successor at the Fed hardly made things better this week. Quote, "We're not trying to induce a recession right now. Let's be clear about that." No, you don't need to, you absolute tool, because you've already been doing it for years. Honestly, my chickens would have done a better job of monetary policy than Jerome Powell and Janet Yellen and the Krugman of 400 expert idiots at the Fed. Meanwhile, Biden pops up this week to give an off-camera interview to a hand-picked reporter and comes out with the genius observation that, quote, "People are really, really down." You don't say. I wonder why that could be. It's a mystery. Biden then proceeds to wash his hands of any responsibility for inflation and the rest of the current economic calamity, saying it's not his fault. What is he, 6? It's not my fault. Don't blame me. But actually, that is the highly revealing and deeply disturbing truth about the ruling elite's theory of government by experts. It gives the politicians an out. It gives them a way to duck responsibility. You see it everywhere. Just now with Biden's baby formula fiasco. Oh, don't blame us. It's the experts at the FDA. Oh, you mean the bumbling bureaucratic idiots at the FDA who could barely talk to each other or to different parts of the government about what they were doing and then shut down a factory with devastating consequences for America's families and humiliation in the eyes of the world as the so-called richest country on the planet had to beg for food to feed its babies, even though tests showed no link between the factory and infant illnesses. You mean those experts? Yeah, great idea to put them in charge. Of course, when the experts in the bureaucracy screwed up, the government turned to the experts in the military to bail them out, flying pallets of baby formula. Well, that was at least something our military leaders just about managed to pull off. But actually winning wars, like the Iraq War or the Afghan War, please, we're experts. We don't do winning, we screw things up.
It is clear, it is obvious, the war in Afghanistan did not end on the terms we wanted, with the Taliban now in power in Kabul.
Sorry, says Mark Milley, turns out I was wrong. Whatever. Can I keep my job? Of course you can, because that's the #1 rule of government by expert idiot. No one is ever held accountable, however much they screw up. Which, of course, we see in the absolute crowning glory of the expert idiot's takeover of government, the coronavirus pandemic. We don't have time to go into all of it now. The forced wearing of masks that don't work, the social distancing zealotry that was an old playbook for a different disease, the cruel and counterproductive lockdowns and school closures. We could go on all night. But let's just take a moment to remember the vanity, the self-importance, the sheer brazen certainty of these expert idiots who turned out to be completely, devastatingly wrong.
When people are vaccinated, they can feel safe that they are not going to get infected.
Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, and that it's not just in the clinical trials, but it's also in real-world data.
And then the gullible stooges in the establishment media themselves, totally enthralled to this cult of the expert, regurgitate the idiocy as if it's tablets of stone from on high.
The virus stops with every vaccinated person. A vaccinated person gets exposed to the virus. The virus does not infect them. The virus cannot then use that person to go anywhere else. It cannot use a vaccinated person as a host to go get more people.
Oh, no, Rachel Maddow, she's such an expert. Of course, it's all laughable now. How wrong the experts were, how wrong the vast majority of the establishment media were to trust the experts. But it keeps happening. The establishment never learns. And so we cannot just subcontract vital decisions about our lives to the experts. Wherever you look, the pandemic, crime, the military, the economy, what the experts have done to this country is an absolute travesty. And even if it wasn't anti-democratic to put all this power in their hands, which it is, even if it didn't contradict the very idea that America was built on, self-government, which it does, on a basic, practical level, government by experts doesn't work because, as we've seen time and time again, the experts are idiots. Tell us what you think at Steve Hilton X and at NextRevFNC, and share this message when we post it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.